if I can ask you a little bit about kind of pre-tech, you know, what was it like? How, you know, the sort of triggers that you get. How would you address it? What did you like? Not necessarily talking from your own perspective, like when you were bringing recruiters into your team, how did it vary the performance?
Do you mean what did outreach look like pre-tech?
Yeah, well, I believe it was like, here's the phone book, go.
Well, yeah, my first job in recruitment was with Quality Locum Solutions, and there was no internet.
My first sales job, the internet was in its infancy. It was there. I had pages to work with.
We actually did have a system called Aztec. The guy that built it, if you ever, he's actually still around. A guy called Derek Passard, and we had a CRM called Aztec. The way that we did our outreach was by faxing full CVs through to A&E nurse stations. So my first desk was cardiology, 97, and we just had a list, Excel spreadsheet, calling for availability. And to get BD, we'd send full CVs through fax, and it just used to keep spamming them with faxes. So the recipients have actually got it quite good now, to be fair, because there's just not reams of paper coming out of the machine. But that was our outreach, and to be fair, worked really well. Worked really well because it was very candidate editorial. When we sent through a CV of a shit hot A&E nurse, like, because they used to be grades then, not bands. It was like an E grade or an F grade or a G grade. Like a G grade was like a nurse in charge. So it'd just be a header, attention nurse in charge, and look at what we've got and a phone number at the bottom. So things haven't changed a great deal, have they? Because we always say that candidate editorials and that journalistic storytelling a skill set still works today. Things haven't changed a great deal. When you think about it, just the method of delivery has changed, and it's probably, well, definitely better because we're not cutting down loads of trees for the fax machine.
I mean,
It was
that's
digital fax, so our timesheets used to come in through Zeta fax. That was like groundbreaking. People would fax a timesheet from the nurse station in A&E. It'd come through on a PDF. That was like we'd invented fire.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we were quite a big agency back then. It was the birth before, like, all the framework agreements, before the European Union got involved. It was literally like Wolf of Wall Street. That sort of buzz in there gives me
Yeah,
goosebumps
you
talking
can't
about it. No?
imagine kind of healthcare recruitment being like Wolf of Wall Street, but I'll take your word for it. Um,
Honestly, the vibe. I mean, our theatre desk, when I first started, our theatre desk had about 30 consultants in one room, and an average week was 100 grand gross margin. It was cutthroat. It was top biller got a Porsche, Bentley, for Wolf of Wall Street.
that's something. I don't know what you think about this. I think one of the things that we do really well with the candidate editorials, and I'm thinking, I was client side while you were agency side. It used to really piss me off getting CVs through because, look, even if you were the good recruiter who actually sent me a genuinely useful CV, I got so many bad CVs. I would just be irritated to get a CV because I knew that it was probably going to be crap and I was going to have to do the work of figuring out whether it was actually crap or not. I think that's one of the reasons that I bang such a hard drum for a candidate editorial. So, here are three reasons that I think this candidate might be useful to you. Here are a few landmark things from this candidate's career that I think make them a really interesting fit for you. That's something I can absorb in a minute. And then I can go, oh yeah, actually, I'd really like to see this CV. I want to see the whole thing. Or, meh, not for me.
Yeah, a lot of recruiters feel that that's been done, an old hat. The problem is it's being done really badly, because we had another video, didn't we, where we talked about accurate segmentation over lazy personalization wins all the time. But the perception is that this is old hat and been done before, and it's just CV spraying.
That's the critical thing. You've said in 1997, so we were talking 30 years ago, you were sending CVs to people and it worked. We are sending candidate editorials to people and it works. It absolutely works.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying to say, well, look, what was bad about the good idea? How do we fix the bad about the good idea? But yeah, I mean, why would you throw things out? I mean, look, in its simplest form, I'd imagine in the market or the souk or the whatever, 1,000 years ago, merchants were doing business with the merchants that they trusted. And, personal relationships were triggering these things. We haven't stopped being people. So until we stop being people, and until it stops being people that we sell to, which is perhaps a topic for another day, until it's being people that we sell to, that some of the fundamental things will work and they will work and they will work. And all you do with an old idea that was working for you in 1997 is you say, well, how do we update it? How do we use technology to make it more effective? How do we look at the things that were worst about it? And the thing that was worst about it, you described there, you sent a shit hot nurse to the nurse in charge. And that was something that, I'd imagine if they weren't short staffed, it wasn't very interesting to them. That's one of the other beauties of outreach. In my background in digital marketing, I ran a digital agency. If you reached out to someone on a Monday and they were not interested in talking to you about their digital marketing because they didn't want to grow with an agency that they loved, or, there was some other impediment, by the following Monday, they still weren't interested. You'd have to leave them alone for a quarter, absolute minimum, really, before you'd go back to them. The beauty of recruitment is we can talk to our prospects on a Monday and it's a no, and we can talk to them on a Friday and it's a yes because someone quit in between.
Yeah, depending on the market, yeah. When the beauty of A&E was you could never judge what was gonna happen. It wasn't predictable because they had to have, back then, there was like minimum staffing, like,
Mm.
patient safety. They're not so
Please
hot
tell
on
me they
that
still
anymore.
have that now.
It's officially still there, but and they're not too fast now. There's elective. Oh, I could bore different conversation, but yeah, it was never predictable. What one of the common mistakes, the mentioning fees before there's any relationship sort of frames you as a supplier before you've earned the right to the conversation.
Mm.
Whereas, it's better, the CV editorial, like you say, it's that piece where you're solving problems. That's kind of all they're interested in. And you're right, if they don't need somebody right then, that's fine. But any reply is a bonus. That for me is the
Mm.
goal, getting a
Yeah,
reply.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
It's funny when you're talking about this, it reminds me of a conversation that we had the other day with a potential partner. I mean, I'm picking on this guy because we've spoken to him this week, but actually this is a fairly common theme. You talk to someone and they're like, well, I don't really want to talk about candidates. I want to talk about my business.
Me.
We want to
I wanna
show,
talk about me.
yeah, me is what I should be talking about.
Yeah. Leading
But
with credentials. How many years I've been in business, why we're different.
yeah, look, he made a fair point. He genuinely,
Yeah.
I think that guy has actually got quite an exciting take on his market. I think he
Yeah,
is.
agreed.
And I understand his reticence about kind of doing something that he feels looks like every other recruiter. I mean, to be honest, if every other recruiter's outreach looked like our partners, then there'd be a lot less recruiters whinging about the market at the minute. But yeah, I get where he's coming from. But the problem, and I've always said this to people, is, do you know who cares about your business and your ideas? It's you and it's your mum. That's the end of the list. Nobody else cares about you until you're useful to them,
Mm.
which is why I talk about that kind of car crash method when it comes to marketing. You need the reach, you need the trust, and you need the authority. And when you've got all of those things in place, then you've got a really quite powerful marketing system. What I would always say is your prospect doesn't care about your business. They're not interested in your story, your credibility. They're not interested in why you're different. Nobody, and I can tell you, I've been client side a lot longer than I've been recruiter side. Nobody wants to hear from a recruiter unless they have a problem. It's like the fire brigade. I don't want, I mean, some people do, but I don't want half a dozen firemen standing at my front door. I don't want to hear from them. I don't need to know anything about them until there's a fire in my kitchen. Until that point, I don't need to engage with the fire brigade, so I don't. And
Right.
recruiters are kind of the same. So I think that's why that deeply candidate-led outreach works, because, presumably you've got a decent bench of candidates. Presumably there's a different range of types of candidates that your prospects could take. So, let's use me as an example as a client running a digital agency. who did we need? Well, look, we needed marketing people. We sometimes were looking for people from a kind of PR background. We needed people with sort of digital advertising, paid social, paid Google, but we also needed developers. We needed designers. We needed front end developers. We needed kind of back end developers. We needed junior, entry, midway. Sometimes, I mean, I remember once we were needing to recruit a lead developer. You don't change them as often as you change them as infrequently as you can, because it's a hell of a job. That's a lot of different candidates. And if you got me on one single day, I probably didn't need any of them. And if I did, if you caught me on a day that I needed someone, I probably only needed one of them. You wouldn't have alienated me by reaching out to me every few weeks and showing me this week a designer, and then next week showing me a kind of senior developer, next week showing me a midway developer. You would keep showing me the sort of people that when I have a need, I would hire. And at some point, I'm going to engage with you. If you're relatively consistent, if I see your name a lot, if I see good candidates from you whenever you reach out, as soon as I start seeing bad candidates from you, never going to hear from me again. But if you keep showing me the sorts of candidates that I actually would hire, at some point I'll either crack and say, oh, listen, I'm not hiring anything at the minute, but I'll bear you in mind. And then that's the reply. That's the start of a conversation. I might say, listen, actually, I don't need anything at the minute. We're a big project at the minute. I'm hoping to win it, and I'm going to need some people in September. So, let's talk then. You might get me on the right day, and I might go, actually, do you know what? I don't need that designer. Looks good. Interesting candidate. I don't need a designer at the minute. What I need a PPC guy. Can you help me with that? So there's a lot of different replies that you might get that have the potential to be positive if you show me good candidates. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to respond to you because you tell me something whizzy about your business, because I genuinely don't care. I'm busy running mine.
Yeah.
Once
Big.
I'm in your orbit, it becomes different, because once I've gone, Steve, I do need that A&E nurse, or I do need that developer. That's at that point, you've kind of earned the right to talk about yourself a little bit, because
Yeah.
I want to know, why should I use Quality Locum Solutions instead of the absolute raft of different recruiters? So I think where you can get a little bit clever is say, your outreach, when you disrupt someone who is sitting at their desk trying to do something else, and you start sending them something, never, ever, 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 ever yourself, because they don't care. But you have a very short window to catch their attention. Send them something that they might actually care about. Now, that's not permission to endlessly talk about yourself all over your social media. But if you want to get across why you're different, that's your kind of, you can record video as we do. You can produce visual content. You can produce written content. You can do a podcast. There's so many different things that you could do. They're the sorts of things that you might want to put on your LinkedIn, on your personal LinkedIn, because it has much bigger reach. Also on your company LinkedIn, although it has much lower reach. It's just that other kind of validation check, because what a customer is looking for at a certain point when they start thinking about being a customer is, who's this guy? Who's this lady? Are they gonna be good to do business with? Can I trust them? Is this all legit? And that's where you do talking about yourself in moderation, mostly talking about yourself, talking about their problems. If that makes sense, I would still
Yeah.
the kind of center of that.
I think you've covered that first common mistake where they lead with credentials and
Mm.
themselves. I think you should go into a little bit more detail though, Tom. It's a bit of a short answer, that one, to be fair.
Are you picking on me because I talk too much?
Tick. Leading with credentials. Nobody cares how many years you've been in the market. They care
No.
whether you understand their problem.
Yeah.
Answered there by Tom, eloquently and in detail.
It's true though. You start wanting to know about a supplier when you're thinking about buying from them.
Yeah.
You don't. You're not going to interrupt my day telling me about your credentials and get any kind of interest from me.
Yeah. Treating outreach.
I have
Treat
a solution to your problem.
Yeah. A lot of common mistakes are like treating outreach like a pitch deck. It's very
Yeah.
easy to just start long messages full of services, descriptions of services. We had that conversation this week, didn't we? Which, like you say, is a fantastic idea. We are different. Why would we do the same as everybody else?
That was an easy one. Firstly, it's not the same as everyone else. Most recruiters aren't doing consistent candidate-led outreach. A lot of them know that they should. Most of them aren't. Many of the ones that are doing it aren't doing it consistently. Many of the ones that are doing it consistently are still doing it badly. Now, I would be very, very wary about suggesting that we're some kind of genius sort of legend. So that there are absolutely recruiters who are doing fantastic outreach. And maybe they're not the ones taking conversations with us, but we talk to a lot of recruiters, and a lot of recruiters, the same theme comes up. Yeah, I do some business development, and then I get something, and then I get busy. and then I forget about it, and I turn around in 2 months and go, "Shit, I've got absolutely no pipeline whatsoever." That
Yeah.
is the most common theme you hear from recruiters, and the number of times we've had conversations that are, "Oh, yeah, I do outreach, and it doesn't work." I mean, they understand the tools. We're not talking to stupid people. We're talking to busy people who are not marketers by trade, and they have a go at their marketing, and sometimes it works, and then they get busy, and then they forget about it, and sometimes they have a go at it, and it just doesn't work, and they go back to what they did before. But yeah, I mean, I don't know who these sort of mythical recruiters who are doing CV or candidate-led outreach consistently are, because we don't talk to them very often.
True. There's a confusion over activity and quality, isn't there, as well?
Mm.
Yeah, sending 200 messages a week that get no replies, much worse than 20 that start a conversation.
100%. And the other the other quite big one for me, when we're on this topic, it feels kind of negligent not to talk about. We really often get asked, "What does good look like?" Often it's asked in a different way. How long is this going to take to work? And then we have to start working out, well, what's your definition of work? I think it's naive to assume in a service like recruitment that marketing is going to get you orders on a regular basis. I'm not saying it won't ever get you orders. It will, when done well, when done consistently for a long enough period of time. And that length of the period of time probably depends on your industry and how open it is and how many people are in it. But you will get orders, but actually mostly you're not, sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. I was going to say mostly you're not marketing because you expect to get orders. The problem is actually often people are marketing because they expect to get orders. If you're selling phone cases, you do some marketing and people buy it. It's probably true about more expensive things as well. If you're selling jumpers or bathroom
Yeah.
tiles, do some marketing and people will buy it. Something like this where, you're gonna use someone to help you find a critical member of your team. You're going to pay them, 15, 20, 25% of that person's salary. You're not going to do that without a pretty deep knowledge and trust of that person, because it's quite an important decision. Actually, a lot of the time, what we are trying to do, and it's important that the recruiter kind of shifts their mindset to that, is we're trying to build you a pool of people know you, like you, trust you, and are ready to do business with you. You still have to do the business with them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. One of the best examples, and you'll have more insights on this than me. Um, you know, I know a lot of recruiters are looking for market signals. They're looking for job ads coming up. If they're trying to work with, if they're trying to work with Centrica, they're looking for a job advert coming up with Centrica, so that they can so they can reach out. They're trying to work with an accountancy practice. They're looking for them. They're advertising a role. At which point they want to talk. Another big trigger is that they see that a business has won some business. So, one of their target companies has just won a new project. It's a fair assumption they're going to need some more people in
Some
order to
investment, yeah, or
investment. Yeah,
or or
no,
senior
yeah,
person's moved on, so there's a
absolutely,
vacuum. That's another
absolutely.
another trigger signal.
So there are a lot of interesting triggers, and if you just sort of get up in the morning and sit and look at those triggers, you're looking for those triggers on LinkedIn, you're looking for them in business news, industry news, those sorts of things. We've looked with partners at some whizzy software that tell you about various different moves and things happening in your industries. When you're looking at those things, quite often when we talk to people, we realize they're not making anywhere near as much impact from the market intelligence that they have as you would think. Because actually, once you hit the point that you go, okay, right, so there is a really good reason for me to phone up ABC Limited. I know exactly what they need. They definitely are going to need this. We should have a chat. At that point, quite often, the first call is, well, let's pick up the phone. To get through the switchboard, they can't reach the person. They get through to the person's really not that interested in talking because they've got 10 other things going on and they don't know who you are. And, you're not the only recruiter who's watching these things. They've probably had 5 calls like this today because there's a trigger and all the other recruiters have seen it
Fastest
too.
finger first, yeah.
Exactly so. Exactly so. So if
Mm.
you're the third or the fourth recruiter that's phoned them today about the exact same thing, you're probably not going to get much traction. We are looking at this from entirely the other end of the spectrum. Today, BC Limited, there is absolutely no good reason to phone them, but at some point there will be. That's the beauty of recruitment. So as I was saying before, just
Mm.
because you don't have a need on a Monday doesn't mean to say you don't have a need on a Friday. So what we really want to do is really penetrate that account. So who are the sorts of decision makers that you could work with? You know, maybe ABC Limited is of a size that you might work with the proprietor or the director or one of the boss, or, whatever the structure is. Maybe they've got talent acquisition and you need to get yourself in front of talent acquisition. Maybe you're working with specific hiring managers, head of this, you're working with project manager. You will have a really clear profile of the sorts of people at ABC Limited that you could work with. And really, what we want to be doing is at a time that there's no particular reason to, we want to be doing steady outreach. We want to be gaining sort of LinkedIn connections, want to be putting out the sort of content that ABC Limited is likely to care about at the point that they are vaguely interested in learning about a recruiter. So you've won that initial attention by showing them something they are likely to care about. And I think we get this a lot with our outreach. A really common response is, thanks, but we're not hiring at the minute. And you've got to think, actually, people aren't that polite. When people are saying, thank you, but I'm not hiring at the moment, they're almost giving you a little vote of confidence for, okay, yeah, I liked your approach.
Yeah.
I'm going to bother engaging with you because you've shown me now that you do actually have the sort of candidates that when I do need them, that's the sort of person I want to hire.
That no is a yes.
It's such a positive signal. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
backing that up with all that trust building, credibility building stuff that we could absolutely need to be doing on your LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile, company LinkedIn, and very steady, respectful, not intrusive, not over the top outreach to keep in front of them. We can surface in ABC Limited. There may be 10 people that you could sell to, but there's maybe one of them that is your likely champion. They respond when you message them. They give you bits of insight, when they're saying we're not hiring at the moment, they're giving you some insight, but where we might be hiring is next September because we've got this going on. Maybe you notice that they've liked a few of your posts, they've commented on stuff. You're looking to build a relationship. So at the point that something happens in ABC Limited and every single recruiter in your niche and a load of opportunist generalists at the same time, they all call ABC Limited. They're all going to the same switchboard. They're all asking for the same people. You know the person that you pick the phone up to who knows you, they like you, they trust you. And I mean, nobody's going to say that you're going to get the business every time. There are going to be a lot of different moving parts, but you will get the conversation. You will be in the frame
Yeah,
if
you've
you've got
got a
it
head
right. And that,
start, haven't you?
that
Often
that's
those sort of replies are not followed up on, or they've just got some sort of poor mechanical reply.
mm,
So they just, ends up on a post-it note for 6 months.
yeah.
That
And I mean, they're notoriously efficient post-it notes for managing follow up on there.
I
They'd never fall off your desk.
I used to work with a recruiter that stuck post-it notes to a screen,
Yeah.
tens of them.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it. It's
And
nuts.
and that and that no could be the old PSL one.
Mm.
That's what you get a lot of the times. We've got a PSL. It's a classic gatekeeper reply. But even that to me is not a no.
I think any conversation is an open door. If you have reached out to 10 people at ABC Limited and you've reached out consistently over several months, the ones that answer you when there's a good reason are the doors to push at. And then there's backing it up. You want a good mix of content. You want several different mediums on your LinkedIn because you need them to be able to at a glance go, oh, right, okay, cool. It's Steve. Yeah, he's a good lad. I get CVs from him now and then. I get candidate editorials from him now and then. I get some quite insightful posts. I like the things that Steve puts out. So something nice and easy to absorb, quite visual maybe. We like carousels. There's more than one different way of doing it, but
Yeah, that's
nice
the hot
visual.
stuff on LinkedIn at the moment, isn't it? The carousels.
Well, they do well. They do well. You've always got to think with LinkedIn. There's a few different pieces to this. You need to please the user. You need to please your prospect. If your prospect doesn't like your content format, it doesn't matter a job. If LinkedIn does, although it's pointless. But you do need to game LinkedIn a little bit at the minute, at any given time as well, because they will promote the things that they want to promote on their network. So that's why I mean we're doing video here and we'll be putting it on LinkedIn, but it's not as big a priority for LinkedIn as it was a few years ago. That's why you started seeing loads and loads of video because they wanted more video on the platform. So they promoted the hell out of video. So at the end of the day, if you've got 5,000 connections, the medium that LinkedIn will show to the highest percentage of your connections is the medium you should be using. And
Yeah, it's
carousels,
anything that keeps you on the platform because they just want to sell
yeah,
ad space. So anything that takes you away from the platform is not a good idea for a start.
mm,
And then the the long form content's not a place for LinkedIn, but short snippets are. Talking about timing, how long do you think the ideal is for the first piece of outreach?
As in physical length.
How much time, as a recipient, how much time I should spend on it, or that's what, too short, too long? If it took me a minute to read it or a minute to engage with it, what do you think is like the sweet
Seconds.
spot?
Seconds. It's absolute seconds.
30 seconds is the absolute maximum. Well,
Your first piece of outreach, we'll normally do a LinkedIn connection note where you've got like 200 characters. It's seconds. It's like, it's the simplest thing that you want to write. They're so easy to write badly, but what we're looking for, and actually being that concise, it's really easy to do it badly. Being that concise, what we're looking for is, I do X for Y, sometimes of the space because Z. It's just you're putting yourself in the frame that is most likely to appeal to that prospect. So if you're dealing with a site manager in the water industry, it might be, I recruit XYZ qualified tradesmen for water industry project managers. You're putting yourself in the frame that's most likely to make them go, yeah. So that's literally, it's a 2, 3, 4, 5 second read. Really simple. And they've got a really easy vote here. They can go, yes, I'll accept a connection. No, I won't. So that's for me, that's the first piece of outreach. When you get that, then you can take a little bit more of their time because they've already given you a little sort of a very tiny hand raise. The next one, that's where you might take 30 seconds. So that's why, although people say, well, CVs is the thing, and that's really old fashioned, but we're not sending CVs. We're sending a very, very short editorial with an offer of more to introduce a candidate. So that's where you want a 30-second read where someone could go, oh, okay, right, wow. So you've got
Yes.
them. They're available now. That's the more tradesman example. They're available now. They've got this ticket. Oh, they've done confined spaces, because confined spaces is quite hard to get. A lot of people don't like working in confined spaces. So if you've got, say, a welder who works in a confined space, that's a big oh, right, okay. So that's something a bit different. That's something a bit special. It's really, really punchy. So first outreach seconds, single digit seconds. The next one inside 30 seconds. You need to give them in a very short time a reason to want to go deeper. Once they know you, once they've connected with you, you might buy that little bit more time. So the first piece of your content they absorb might be a carousel. They might look at, some pretty pictures, a handful of words on it, an idea. Okay, cool. It's building that trust, building that reach, it's building that trust. And then, we post these entire videos. We're not expecting most people to watch them. But when you've been in our orbit for a while, you've maybe had some outreach from us and thought, oh, that's a bit interesting, that's a bit different, not exactly the same thing that I always see. And you've looked at some of our content, then you might take yourself over to our LinkedIn company page. It's the exact reverse of what you were saying. Completely agree with you. You try to keep people on the platform. You can't do a video for more than 15 minutes on LinkedIn, so we have to post off to our YouTube channel. We're not using this long video. We're not using this for reach. This is at the point that someone's kind of been looking at some of our stuff. They're going to take themselves the half hour, the 45 minutes to sit. And most people won't, to sit and see what our ideas are. And really what they're doing, they're deciding, am I interested in working with these guys?
Somebody reached out yesterday after watching one of the short clips. Yeah. So that was quite nice. Said she said it was interesting. It was the personalization segmentation snippet.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit of clickbait, like personalization is dead, something like that. It was personalization done badly is dead. Yeah.
Well, and look, clickbait's only clickbait if you don't follow through.
Yeah, true.
If you sell the click and then you deliver what you promised when you were selling the click, it's not clickbait.
And consistency over time beats the blast and hope, doesn't it?
100%.
Showing up repeatedly with relevant content, commentary.
That's it. I mean, the biggest thing that I see, because, I'm not a rocket scientist. I stumbled my way into marketing because I'm quite interested in people and how they think. That's what brought me. I haven't got a degree in marketing, by the way. I studied psychology at uni. So I'm interested in people. I'm interested in how they think. It was a natural place for me to find myself in marketing, I think. There's nothing I know that you could figure out. The people that we work with are bright. I know not every recruiter is a rocket scientist, but the ones that we work with are bright, capable. There's nothing about what we do that they couldn't over time figure out. But my argument is why. Look, I I'm useless. You know, we've talked about this before. I wouldn't even know which end of a spanner to hold. I'm not stupid. I could figure out how to fix my own bug if I wanted to figure out how to fix my own bug. I just realized a long time ago it's much easier to phone a guy who's been doing this for the last 20 years, and I can just say, hey, listen, I've got this problem, and he comes. I pay him 100 quid or a couple hundred quid, and he fixes it. And it's I don't understand the mentality of like, I should be doing everything. It's like, if you want to scale a business, put people around you who are better at all the different parts of it than you are. You know, I understand the balance sheet. I haven't sat my accountant. You know what I mean? It's simple stuff a lot of the time that we do, but a lot of it
Mm.
is just about consistency. Because one of the biggest things we see from recruiters is they have a go, they have a little dip dip their toe in the water, they don't get the results they wanted, and the outcome is, oh, there's no point doing LinkedIn marketing. There's no point doing content marketing. There's no point doing outreach. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no point doing it for a fortnight. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, which is what a lot of recruiters do.
Yeah. It, the biggest thing, if people took one single thing from this, marketing is not a silver bullet. You don't fire it once and sit there taking orders. And really now what you've become is, the inbound line at BT changing phone contract. You need to consistently show up. You need to consistently talk about things your prospects care about. You need to do outreach again and again and again and again. You need to do content marketing again and again and again and again. Not because you're going to get an absolute deluge of orders. It's because it earns you the right to the conversation. You still
Yeah.
need in recruitment to pick up the phone and sell something to someone most of the time.
Yeah. The goal is getting a reply. It's that
That's
simple. That's the only goal that outreach should be doing. Get a reply. Shouldn't be booking a call. Shouldn't be getting a meeting. Shouldn't be getting a brief. Shouldn't be getting a project. That's difficult and it should not be selling yourself. They're not interested.
mm.
Lots of recruiters are absolutely gobsmacked when you tell them that nobody really wants to hear from you. They've got no interest in you at all. None. And it's like, oh, what?
I've run a business outside recruitment. You get badgered by recruiters all of the time.
Yep.
You know, I mostly wouldn't take the calls. I got multiple calls daily. I got cold emails daily. I got CVs sent to me most days. You know, it's really hard, I think, when you're sitting there and you go, I know I do a really good job for my clients. I know I add a load of value for them. They don't know that yet because they don't know you. And because they don't know you, they don't care about you. The
Yeah.
only way that you will get them to care about you is to lead entirely with what's important to them, and just accept the fact that, you are probably not going to get their attention until they have a need, and that's okay. It's like the always on kind of outreach and content marketing. It's like it's a tickle and flirt. You know, we tickle them with a piece of outreach, and today that lands on deaf ears because the best written candidate editorial, someone who doesn't need anyone at all, mostly isn't going to respond to that. They're mostly not going to engage with that, and that's okay, because when we send it again in a fortnight, I mean, their needs have changed. Or maybe they go, so Steve, yeah, actually, yeah, that does look like quite a good guy. I don't need it, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to reply to him. I'm going to completely ignore it. But yeah, that does look like a
It's
good
that
candidate.
it's that front of mind piece as well, isn't it? I remember knowing, and I still remember them to this day, what I would, and if you're watching Mr. Theo James Recruitment, everything they did just looked like if I was going to be a recruitment consultant, that's the agency I'd want to work for. And I didn't want to be a recruitment consultant. At the time I think I was still in Bluestones or just left. But everything they did was just like the benchmark for me. And still to this day, I had no interest whatsoever in anything they did other than the fact that if I was going to model an agency, I pinched a lot of their ideas, to be honest with you. They got into like the video interviewing pretty quickly and some of the
Mm.
platforms that provided that. Can't remember the name of it now. It escapes me. One of the big ones. The founder of it unfortunately died, a Scottish guy. But yeah, Theo James Recruitment. Their marketing was absolute, and they didn't do anything particularly special. They sort of let you into their world. So they did quite a lot of video. A lot of it was quite, in the moment sort of stuff. The office games, all the stuff a lot of people just go cringe now. But back then it was quite refreshing. And they just kind of showed you the journey. They showed you that they did this and they did case studies. Everybody was really personable. They were doing video job ads when it was fresh and new.
Mm.
And It was front of mind. So
Yeah.
any time I was like thinking about sculpting these agencies that I was creating, I would always reference Theo James and have a quick look. Have a
Mm.
quick look about what they were up to, what their website was now like, what where they were in the market. They were a manufacturing agency, I'm pretty sure, up north. Theo James Recruitment. But yeah, it's that front of
They're
mind
useful
piece as
flags.
well,
That's
isn't it?
because we've talked about it before, but yeah, they do ring a bell.
Do they?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
ring a bell.
But yeah, the front of mind piece, like you say, it's when they do have a need that you've got
Yeah,
the head start.
yeah.
So the fastest finger first will still be there, but then you'll just go, hang on a minute, out of the 10 that have just responded to a trigger, I think I know this person a little bit better than the rest. And
That's
therefore they're
really
elevated on the list of people to have a crack at the brief with. So
it's
yeah.
it's it's about mapping an account well. Let's just say, some of our partners are working with really, really big organizations. So the person that you know best might not be the right person to talk to about this role. I mean, think about this for yourself. Sort of Johnny Rando phones you out of the blue now. You're going to have a different level of engagement to if Ian, for those who don't know, Ian's our marketing manager. He runs the marketing projects for our partners. If Ian says, listen, Steve, will you take a call with this guy? I think you should talk to him about X. The likelihood of you giving that person some time and some consideration massively increases. So by having that always on marketing, by penetrating those accounts, by understanding who your champions are in those accounts, when the need comes up, yeah, don't get me wrong. There's an element of fastest finger first. If you ignore it for 3 weeks and then do something, then it's already that ship sailed. But I would argue that if you have someone at ABC Limited, you can pick the phone up to because they know you, they like you, they trust you, and you can say, listen, this new project you've won in Basingstoke, are you involved in that? No, you're not. Who deals with it? Is there any chance you can give me an intro? Because I think I can help. I'm guessing they're going to need some X, Y, Z, and we've got some really good ones at the moment. This stuff's not rocket science. I don't want to be teaching my granny to suck eggs here. The big thing I want people to take from this is reframe what success looks like from outreach and marketing. If you are measuring this in, I have spent 2 weeks doing this now and I haven't had any orders, you're measuring it in completely the wrong way, and you're going to throw out something that will work for you because you haven't looked at how to measure it, if that makes sense. Something we're hearing a lot from recruiters at the minute, and I completely agree with them, is that LinkedIn Recruiter is getting stupidly expensive. Job boards are getting stupidly expensive. We've talked a lot during this conversation about outreach and about marketing to clients. And obviously that's critical. That's a really, really big part of what we do. But it's also worth thinking about your candidate database. Don't overlook the value and the importance of building an engaged pool of candidates who are looking at your stuff, they're engaging with your stuff, you're talking to them in LinkedIn. That is quite a big asset because you can move essentially from rented attention where you're paying for a recruiter, you're paying for job boards, you're paying for access to an own database. I've long argued, and I think this has always been true, but it's as the job boards and LinkedIn Recruiter get more expensive, it becomes more and more true. One of the greatest assets that a recruiter has is a really, really good ATS. If you've got a really good database, you've got good data on these people. It's not just about a bunch of names in a database. It's about really well managed data on your candidate pool. That's a huge asset because there's a lot of people who are now starting to move away from LinkedIn Recruiter, and that's fine as long as you've got something to replace it. Because what you don't want is to lose something that's essentially table stakes for a lot of people. The only way to replace that is to have your own really, really good candidate database that's engaged. You're talking to them, you know their moves, you know when they're ready to move. That is a real asset that comes from marketing, and we shouldn't overlook the candidate piece.
Yeah, be interesting to know how much LinkedIn's hemorrhaging new subscriptions. So they're going through a bit of an auto trader moment, I think, where they've just got a little bit too greedy.
People are getting very pissed off with them. The trouble is, though, a lot of people, they just don't manage their data properly. And it's all well and good saying, "Oh, well, I don't want to use Recruiter." But if you don't have a good ATS, your choices are, job boards, LinkedIn Recruiter, or don't have a business in recruitment. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, if you look at success, obviously sales, obviously placements is a critical measure of success, but that's more than just your marketing. Your early measurement of marketing needs to be about conversations. It needs to be about engagement. It needs to be about having well mapped accounts that when a sales opportunity arrives, you've got the right person to open the door for you. That's critical. But don't forget the candidate piece. If you're doing good, outreach, if you're doing good marketing, you should be building that candidate database, and that gives you the ability, if you want to in the future, to move away from some of the other channels that other recruiters will be entirely dependent on.
Agreed. Wrap.